13 years old, my life changed. I met Rabbi Trenk. I was kicked out of 4 elementary schools, and I came to for Shabbos to Philadelphia. And I came for Shabbos, and there's just a lot of things that I saw where I said, I'm not coming here. So after Shabbos, I spoke to Rabbi Frank, who was my principal. They told me, go visit Rabbi Trenk. And I come to Rabbi Trenk in Camp Monk, and I still remember in my mind sitting on the bench in the camp, in front of the camp, and I told Rabbi Trenk that I don't want to come to Philadelphia. So he said, why don't you want to come to Philadelphia? So he said, on Shabbos, I was sitting, and there was a Bacharan boy that just came out of public school. And he came into the room and he asked for batteries for some type of device. And I said, I can't be in such a yeshiva.
Let's go.
So he said, it's not possible. So I said, what do you mean it's not possible? I just saw it. So he said, no, it's not possible. And he got very upset at me. And then he said, maybe Adelphia is not for you. My in-laws told me that they came to PTA for my brother-in-law, and they told Ray Trenk that their son is being negatively influenced by another boy in class named Shimon. So Trenk said, my Shimon would do such a thing to your son? It's not possible. My son would never do such a thing. Would never be a negative influence to your son. He believed that these kids were his kids. But I was thinking, it's the love that he had wasn't just a love from it was something that he followed from his Gedolim. He saw from his Rabbi, and he constantly showed it upon us. That came through in the class. Every single day we heard from all of the boss, we heard from all the Gedolim that he saw. And he put it into us every single day. My friend was a waiter in Camp Monk. He was in the Rebbe's dining room, and it was the first Shabbos that he was a waiter, and Rabbi Trenk asked him to bring him a tea. And he was so proud that he was a waiter, and he came running in with a tea and a tea bag, and he put it in and he gave it to Rabbi Trenk. And we all know you can't do that on Shabbos. Rabbi Trenk didn't say you're not allowed to do that. But the next day he had a Seder, Mishabur, and Hilchah Shabbos, and he went through it the whole week. And they came the next Shabbos, and he asked him for a tea again, and he was so excited, and he told this waiter, go tell everybody how to make a proper tea. He didn't just teach. He taught it with ahava. My brother was in a different yeshiva. I was in 10th grade by Goldman, and my brother got kicked out of the yeshiva, and we needed to find the yeshiva for him. And my parents were divorced, so I had to help get him into yeshiva. And Trenk taught me what askanas was, how to get it done. He taught me how to go to Rishon and keep on going to Rishon and get him in. And my brother showed up for his interview, and my brother said he remembers that day how Trenk took him under the arm and walked him from the yeshiva all the way to Philadelphia to Route 9 and back. And he told him over the story, and he said the story over to him 3 times. And my brother showed up, and he said there were, in those days, if you wanted to come to Philadelphia, you had to take the Lakewood bus from Brooklyn to Lakewood, and then you would take the Jersey Transit back to Philadelphia Road, and then you would call one of your Rabbeim, and they would pick you up. So these 2 boys were coming from Brooklyn, and they were on the bus, and they were talking about something that they had in the dormitory. And someone heard this conversation, and he called Rabbi Trenk to tell Rabbi Trenk what these 2 boys had in the dormitory in their closet. And Rabbi Trenk asked, as he was telling the story to this person, he said, do you know what Mesivta they're learning? Do you know what they're doing in yeshiva? He said, you're concerned about something that they have hidden about them in their room, and you're not concerned about something that's obvious. First know what they are. Know where they're coming from. Then you can tell me about something that's private in their room. When I was in 9th grade. Meir Kahana was Nifta. And everyone was talking about JDL or guns. Did he have guns? Did he not have guns? What was he all about and everything? And in runs Rabbi Trenk into the dining room Friday night meal, stands up on a bench and says, let me tell you about the great Meir Kahana. Let me tell you about what he accomplishes. Let me tell you. And then he said, he learned in Yeshiva, and he wanted to stay in Kollel and he couldn't afford it. So he took a newspaper run, and he got up at 10 o'clock at night, and he used to go pick up the newspaper, and he used to do his run. And then he was in Yeshiva learning at 4 o'clock in the morning with the Chavrusa. That is what we should talk about. That's what we should talk about, the greatness of Meir Kahana. There was alumnus that lost a son, and he was sitting Shiva. He went to Eretz Yisrael, so he was sitting Shiva for another day in Monsey. And in walks Rabbi Trenk at 9 o'clock in the morning, and he's sitting all alone, this fellow, and Rabbi Trenk pulls up a chair, a small chair, and he sits down next to him, and he stays not for an hour, not for 2 hours, not for 3 hours, not for 4 hours, for the whole day, because his Talmud, his son, is sitting Shiva, and he felt the pain. We all know that it was said by Levi, and it was said many times, if there was a chayla, that chayla was part of him. And when he would see you, he would ask you how that chayla is. A friend of mine, Aaron Moshe, his wife was sick, and every single time he met him, every single time he would ask him, how's his wife's doing, but by the full name that he was being misfollowed for. They took a turn for the worse by this friend, and we were thinking as friends what to do to build up their spirits. They're having a very hard time. So it was his birthday, so we decided we're going to get an ice cream truck and give ice cream to the whole block, and everybody should come out and make brachas. So we called our Trenk, we tell him the story, what we're doing for this friend in Lakewood. So he tells us, tell me what time the truck is coming. And he came, our friend has pictures, standing on the top of his lungs, screaming with all the kids, shahakal, a Yeshiva, a Rabbi, to do such a thing like that. But the chizik that he gave to this couple, they were able to withstand it. I was in Derech Chaim, in the Ezras Nashim, which is probably 30 feet down, and there was a fellow sitting and learning. And Rabbi Trenk looks down and tells me, that's Bava Basra, Daf Chof, Amar Aleph, and the Tosfos talks like that. He could have gave the shir, he could have everything, but he chose to take care of Hashem's children. He talked about the Rav, from Meir Yeshiva, how when he needed a principal from Meir Yeshiva, he said that they heard that in order to attract the boys to come to Meir Yeshiva, they need a very strong English department. So there was a certain principal in the public school that if he would come and be the principal, it would change the school. So our train said that he went together with the Rav, and he walked to the public school, and it was a big gang. And he said the fire in his eyes, and all the kids split out. And they walked into the principal. He asked where the principal's office. He couldn't even say the word principal in English properly. And he walked into the office, and he said, I need you to be the principal in Meir Yeshiva. And he said, I can't do it, but I'll get you my son-in-law. And his son-in-law changed the yeshiva. And he also said about a story that there was a boy that was kicked out of Meir Yeshiva. He was about to get kicked out of Meir Yeshiva. And at that time, the Rabbi, he was very sick, and he hardly came to yeshiva. And he said some young went over to the Rav to tell him what was going on, and he put his head on the bookcase, and he cried out, and he said, "We're asking HaKadosh Baruch for Rachmanis, then how can we not have Rachmanis on our children?" He also spoke about how he had a file on Eichmann, and when it came that it was not negay anymore, that he had a tremendous amount of information and pictures, more pictures than anybody else, and there was a file of different pictures, and he wanted to show one of the Talmidim what Yeshiva Mir had on Eichmann. And a week later, after they captured Eichmann, they brought him in. He brought him into the file to look where the pictures was of all the file, and he said that I threw it out, the whole file, because it's not negated anymore. So we learned all different aspects of caring for other people. We learned we learned what to do. I remember that when we first started trying to help Nurses Yeshua, like our Goldman said, he would come into Brooklyn for $500, for $100. Our friend said we have to do something to help Rabbi. And Baruch Hashem, we made a nice first event. And then we were having a meeting how to plan the next event. And Trenk drove in an hour and a half to come to thank us by this meeting. And I'm sure, as everybody knows, putting together a meeting of Balvatim, it itself is very hard, working everyone's schedule out together. And in walks Trenk and gives a 30-second thank you, and then said, Rabbi say it's time to go home to your wives. He said, you did your ashtadlis, now it's time to go back. And each check that he got for $500, he felt that it was his ashtadlis in saving another life. It didn't look at whether or not he got 500 or 1,000 or 5,000. This was just another building block in how he could change the world. I had a daughter, Baruch Hashem, she's healthy, but we were in the hospital, and we were sitting, we were talking to the doctor, and in walks Trenk, and I couldn't talk to him. We were talking to the doctor. He sat in the room for 45 minutes. Before I got back, he left. But he wanted me to know that he cares, and that was it. There's a fellow who I was visiting Trenk, and he's a Rebbe today in Rockaway, and he said how Trenk changed his life. His parents had shaykhs to Trenk, and they were mentioning that their son was having some trouble in Denver. In those days, getting on a plane was not a common occurrence, especially for a Rebbe. The cost was probably tremendous. All of a sudden, he gets a call on the payphone, that what time is mincha? And he goes, I'll be there in the yeshiva in a half hour. And he comes to the yeshiva, and he talks to the boys' Rebbe, and he tells them that the boy's doing great, and he's going to keep on doing good, and he's mechazik this young man. And then he left without mincha, and he left. He said from that point, he started a letter correspondence with him. Today, he's a mechanech, not of 100, thousands of Talmidim. He has changed his life from that interaction because he heard that there was a bacher in Denver that wasn't his bacher, but there was somebody that was yearning and someone that needed help. I think just walking away, I think, over is caring, and you can make a difference. We learned from him that you can make a difference. Care, learn to make a difference, and learn to follow Yechashav Rabbeim and Yeshivas.